The red dust of Mars swirled around Dr. Sarah Chen's boots as she made her way across the rim of Valles Marineris. The morning sun cast long shadows across the canyon's depths, where her team had been excavating for the past 6 months. Their scanning equipment had detected something massive buried deep within the ancient river, something that didn't match any natural geological formation. Base, this is Chen. Beginning final descent to anomaly site Delta 7, she reported into her suit's comm system. The response came back crisp and clear, despite being kilometers below the surface. Copy that, Dr. Chen. Remember, you've got 4 hours of oxygen. Make them count. Sarah checked her tether one last time before beginning her descent into the canyon. The massive walls of Valles Marineris loomed around her, dwarfing everything in sight. This was her 7th trip down, but the sheer scale still took her breath away. Mars had many secrets, but what they'd found here was different. The energy signatures were unlike anything they'd ever encountered. As she rappelled down, her mind wandered to the message they'd received from Earth 2 days ago. The long-range telescopes had picked up something entering the solar system. Multiple somethings. The official story was that they were just unusual asteroids, but Sarah had friends in high places. Whatever was coming, it had the military scared. 3 hours later, Sarah stood before a smooth metallic surface that shouldn't exist. Her team had cleared away millions of years of sediment to reveal what looked like a hull plate, its surface still gleaming despite its age. The material wasn't like anything in their database. It absorbed radar signals and seemed to regulate its own temperature. Dr. Chen called out Dr. James Rodriguez, her chief engineer. You need to see this. We found what looks like an access point. Sarah made her way carefully across the excavation site. The exposed section of hull stretched for nearly a kilometer in either direction, but James had found something different. A seam in the otherwise perfect surface. As she approached, she noticed symbols etched into the metal around the seam. Her heart nearly stopped. James, she whispered, these are human letters. The inscription was weathered but clear. TFSHIPERION, Terran Federal Ship. Before either of them could speak, their comms crackled to life with an emergency broadcast from Mars Base 1. All personnel, this is not a drill. Unknown objects have entered Mars orbit. They're not asteroids. Repeat, they're not asteroids. All surface teams, return to base immediately. Sarah and James exchanged looks through their helmet visors. Above them, somewhere beyond the thin Martian atmosphere, history was about to repeat itself. But this time, humanity might have just found its ace in the hole. Base, this is Dr. Chen, she transmitted, her voice steady despite her racing heart. We're not leaving. What we found here, it changes everything. Send everyone you can spare, and get me a direct line to Earth Command. The next 12 hours were a blur of activity. As news of the alien vessels spread panic across Earth and Mars, Sarah's team worked with renewed urgency. They'd uncovered what appeared to be a massive airlock, its systems still humming with power after countless millennia. The ship, and Sarah was now certain it was a ship, had been waiting. Earth's most powerful telescopes tracked the alien vessels as they moved through the solar system. They were massive, each one nearly the size of Manhattan, and they were heading straight for Earth. First contact was coming, but it didn't feel like the peaceful meeting humanity had hoped for. As Sarah studied the airlock's control panel, she couldn't shake the feeling that this wasn't a coincidence. An ancient human warship, buried on Mars, discovered just as humanity faced its first extraterrestrial threat. The universe didn't deal in coincidences this big. Dr. Chen called out Dr. Yuki Tanaka, their xenoarchaeologist. I've been analyzing these symbols. They're not just English. There are repeating patterns that suggest this was some kind of military vessel. And based on the depth and surrounding geological layers, this ship is at least 300,000 years old. Sarah stared at the massive hull stretching into the darkness. 300,000 years, she muttered. All this time, we thought we were just beginning our journey to the stars. But we've been there before, haven't we? The team worked through the night, setting up floodlights that cast strange shadows across the ancient hull. Every new discovery raised more questions. The ship's hull was made of materials that defied analysis. Their scanners suggested vast spaces inside, preserved by systems that were somehow still functioning. As the sun rose over Mars again, Sarah received a transmission from Earth Command. The alien vessels had begun broadcasting a message, repeating it in every known human language. People of Earth, you occupy space claimed by the Craven Dominion. Your solar system lies within our expansion zone. You have 48 hours to surrender control of your planets. Resistance will result in immediate pacification. Sarah looked up at the Martian sky, then back at the massive ship they'd uncovered. Send them our response, she told Earth Command. Tell them we need more time. Tell them we're still weighing our options. She turned to her team, their faces visible through their helmet visors, all showing the same mix of fear and determination. We've got 48 hours to wake up this sleeping giant. Let's make them count. Somewhere above them, the Craven ships settled into orbit, their crews confident in their superiority over this primitive world. They had no way of knowing that humanity's primitive appearance was merely the latest chapter in a much longer story. A story that was about to come full circle. As Sarah placed her hand on the airlock's control panel, she whispered, "Time to remember who we were." The panel lit up beneath her touch, and deep within the ancient vessel, systems began to stir. The ancient airlock opened with a hiss that echoed through Valles Marineris. Sarah and her team stood transfixed as stale air from inside the ship mixed with their filtered atmosphere. Their suit sensors analyzed the mixture, perfectly breathable, as if the ship's life support systems had never stopped working. Environmental systems are active and functioning, reported Dr. Rodriguez, checking his instruments. Temperature, it is normalizing. Whatever powered this ship is still running after 300 millennia. The first steps into the TSS Hyperion felt like walking through time. Their headlamps revealed corridors designed for human use, but with technology far beyond anything they'd ever seen. Holographic displays flickered to life as they passed, responding to their presence with streams of data in an evolved form of English. "The ship's recognizing us," Dr. Tanaka observed, her voice filled with wonder. "It's scanning our genetic markers. Look, the displays are adapting to modern English syntax." Sarah watched as ancient text transformed into readable information. "It's not just recognizing us," she said. "It's remembering us. We're not just explorers here. We're the crew it's been waiting for." As they made their way deeper into the ship, Earth Command kept them updated on the Craven situation. The alien vessels had taken up strategic positions around Earth and Mars. Their weapons systems, visible even to primitive human scanners, made Earth's most powerful armaments look like toys. The team reached what appeared to be the bridge after 2 hours of careful exploration. The circular room was dominated by a central command chair surrounded by holographic interfaces. As Sarah approached the chair, the entire room hummed to life. "Welcome, descendants," a voice echoed through their comms. "I am HFY, Advanced Recursive Intelligence Assistant. TSS Hyperion has awaited reactivation for 327,482 standard years." The team exchanged glances. An artificial intelligence, still functioning after all this time. Sarah took a deep breath and spoke. "HFY, I'm Dr. Sarah Chen. We need to understand. What is this ship? Why was it hidden here?" The air filled with holographic displays showing star maps and historical records. The Hyperion was the flagship of the Terran Federal Fleet, HFY explained. When the decision was made to begin the Great Sleep, it was hidden here as an insurance policy, a guardian to be awakened when humanity faced its first major extraterrestrial threat. The Great Sleep, Dr. Rodriguez asked. What decision? Why would an advanced civilization choose to start over? Images of ancient battles and starships filled the air around them. The Terran Federation spanned thousands of light years. ARIA continued. But with great power came great responsibility. The burden of protecting hundreds of species, maintaining peace across the galaxy, it was wearing on humanity's collective psyche. Your ancestors feared they were losing touch with their roots, with the very things that made them human. Sarah watched as the images showed massive ships, similar to the Hyperion, standing guard over peaceful worlds. So they chose to start over, to forget everything. Not forget, Ariah corrected. Sleep. Return to Earth. Rebuild from the beginning. Experience again the joy of discovery, the triumph of overcoming challenges. But they left guardians like me, waiting and watching, ready to help remember when the time was right. A new alert flashed across the displays. The Craven ships were moving. Their deadline was still 20 hours away, but they were repositioning for what looked like an attack formation. Ariah, Sarah said urgently, can this ship still fight? Can you help us defend Earth? The A's response was immediate. The Hyperion systems are at 97% capacity. However, you are not military personnel. Operating this vessel effectively requires training we don't have time to complete. Then we'll have to learn as we go, Sarah declared. Because right now, we're humanity's only hope. The next hours were a crash course in operating an ancient warship. Ariah began transferring knowledge directly through their suit systems. Basic ship operations, weapons controls, defensive capabilities. The Hyperion was more than just a warship. It was one of the most advanced vessels ever created by human hands. Dr. Tanaka discovered the ship's hangar bay, filled with smaller craft still perfectly preserved. Dr. Rodriguez worked with ARIA to understand the ship's power systems, a fusion of technologies that humanity wouldn't rediscover for centuries. Every minute brought new revelations about their species' forgotten capabilities. As the deadline approached, Sarah received a priority transmission from Earth Command. The Craven had launched probes toward Earth's major cities, a show of force to demonstrate their technological superiority. Ariah, Sarah called out, settling into the command chair. How long until we can get this ship airborne? Primary systems are online. Hull integrity is optimal. However, I must warn you. The Craven Dominion was known to the Federation. They are scavengers of technology, conquerors who prey on developing worlds. They will not expect resistance, but once revealed, the Hyperion will become their primary target. Sarah looked at her team, seeing the same determination in their eyes that she felt. Good, she said. That's exactly what we want. Because humanity isn't some helpless primitive species for them to conquer. We're the descendants of the Terran Federation, and it's time we reminded the galaxy of that fact. The Hyperion's engines began to power up, sending vibrations through the massive ship. Above them, millions of tons of Martian rock began to shift as ancient anti-gravity systems activated. The ship that had slept for over 300,000 years was awakening, and with it, humanity's forgotten legacy as guardians of the stars. In orbit, the Craven ships detected a massive energy surge from the surface of Mars. Their sensors, designed to identify any known threat, couldn't classify what they were seeing. As far as they knew, humanity was a primitive species barely capable of reaching their own moon. They were about to learn how wrong they were. The Hyperion rose from Mars like a legend coming to life. Centuries of red dust cascaded from its hull as massive anti-gravity engines lifted the ancient warship from its resting place. The vessel was enormous, nearly 3 kilometers long, its dark hull gleaming with patterns of light that seemed to flow like water. In Mars orbit, the Craven fleet's sensors blared with warnings. What they'd dismissed as a primitive world had just revealed something impossible. A warship of clearly advanced design, bearing marks of technology that sent shockwaves of recognition through the Craven command. Multiple Craven vessels adjusting position, Ariah reported, her calm voice filling the Hyperion's bridge. They are charging weapon systems. Curious. Their energy signatures suggest salvage technology from various civilizations. Quite inefficient. Sarah gripped the command chair's arms as the ship continued its ascent. Her team had taken positions around the bridge, each connected to the ship's systems through their modified suits. The knowledge ARIA had transferred helped, but they were still amateurs trying to pilot one of the most advanced vessels ever built. "They're broadcasting," Dr. Rodriguez called out from his station. "Playing it now." A harsh voice filled the bridge. "Unknown vessel, you operate within Craven Dominion space. Power down immediately or be destroyed. Your primitive world cannot hope to." The message cut off abruptly as ARIA intercepted it. "They're scanning us heavily," she reported, detecting signs of agitation in their command frequencies. They've recognized the Hyperion's design pattern. Sarah leaned forward. "They know what this ship is." The Craven were a minor species during the Federation era, ARIA had explained, bringing up historical records. They survived by scavenging technology from ancient battlefields. After the Great Sleep, they began conquering less advanced worlds, building an empire from stolen power. But they remember the ships they used to fear. As if to prove ARIA's point, the Craven fleet began to move. Their formation shifted from an attack pattern to a more defensive stance. 5 massive ships, each bristling with weaponry cobbled together from a dozen different civilizations, preparing to face a ghost from their past. "They're launching fighters," Dr. Tanaka reported, her hands moving across holographic controls that had become increasingly familiar. Hundreds of them. Sarah watched the swarm of smaller craft approach. "ARIA, what are our options?" The Hyperion's primary weapons would vaporize their entire fleet, the AI responded. "However, given your lack of combat experience, I suggest a demonstration. The ship's defensive systems can handle this autonomously." Sarah nodded. "Do it. Show them what they're dealing with." The Hyperion's outer hull shimmed as layers of energy fields activated. The Craven fighters opened fire, their weapons, impressive by modern standards, splashing harmlessly against shields designed to withstand weapons far more powerful. Initiating countermeasures, ARIA announced. From the Hyperion's hull, pulses of golden light emerged. Each pulse swept through space like a wave, catching the Craven fighters. Instead of destroying them, the energy simply shut them down, leaving them floating harmlessly in space. "A suppression field," ARIA explained. "It disables any technology operating on principles less advanced than our own." The pilots are unharmed, but they now lack the ability to fight or maneuver. The Craven command vessels watched in horror as their entire fighter screen went dark. This wasn't the primitive resistance they'd expected. This was something else, something from the stories their species told about the time before, when giants walked among the stars. Sarah stood from her command chair, facing the main view screen. "Open a channel to their flagship," she ordered. "Let's give them a chance to reconsider their position." The channel opened, revealing a bridge crew of aliens with scaled skin and elaborate technological implants. Their commander, larger than the others, stared at Sarah with a mixture of fear and defiance. "This is Dr. Sarah Chen of the TFS Hyperion," she announced, hoping her voice sounded steadier than she felt. "Your fleet is now facing a Terran Federal vessel with full defensive capabilities. We just disabled your fighters without harming a single pilot. That was a courtesy. The next demonstration will be considerably less gentle." The Craven commander's scales shifted color, a sign of agitation, according to ARIA's quick translation. "Impossible," he growled. "The Terran Federation is dead. Their ships are legends, stories to frighten children." "Look at your sensors again," Sarah replied. "The Federation isn't dead. It was sleeping. And you just tried to conquer its homeworld." Before the commander could respond, new alarms blared across both bridges. From the direction of Earth, massive energy signatures appeared. More ships breaking orbit, rising from hidden bases beneath Earth's oceans and polar ice caps. "It appears the Hyperion's activation has triggered others," ARIA commented. The insurance policy was more comprehensive than originally indicated. Sarah watched in awe as more vessels of similar design appeared, their hulls gleaming in the sunlight. Humanity hadn't just hidden one ship. They'd hidden an entire fleet, scattered across their solar system, waiting for the moment they would be needed. The Craven commander's face had lost all traces of defiance. His species' legends hadn't done justice to the reality of facing humanity's forgotten might. "You have 1 hour to leave this solar system," Sarah declared. "Take your disabled fighters with you, and spread the word to your dominion. Earth is not some primitive world to be conquered. We are the descendants of the Terran Federation, and we remember who we are now." As the Craven fleet scrambled to retrieve their fighters and retreat, Sarah sank back into her command chair. The immediate threat was over, but she knew this was just the beginning. Humanity had awakened to find a galaxy very different from the one they'd left behind. A galaxy that needed its guardians to return. "Araya," she said quietly, "tell me more about the Federation. Tell me everything. It's time we learned about our inheritance." Around them, the stars seemed to shine brighter, as if welcoming humanity back to their ancient place among them. In the days following the Craven retreat, Earth changed forever. The Hyperion hung in orbit like a sentinel, its presence a constant reminder that humanity's story was far grander than anyone had imagined. But it was what they found in the ship's databases that truly transformed their understanding of who they were. The Federation wasn't just powerful. Dr. Tanaka explained to a room full of world leaders, her hands moving through holographic star charts. It was purpose-built to protect. Our ancestors didn't conquer the galaxy. They guided it, defended it, helped younger species grow. The images showed scenes that seemed impossible. Humans walking among dozens of alien species, great ships standing guard over developing worlds, massive engineering projects that shaped the very fabric of space. 300,000 years ago, humanity hadn't just reached for the stars. They had become their guardians. Sarah spent countless hours with Araya, learning about the civilization they'd forgotten. The decision to sleep wasn't made lightly, the AI explained, showing records of the final days. The Federation Council spent years debating it. They saw how power was changing them, how the responsibility of protecting thousands of worlds was wearing on humanity's soul. So they chose to start over, Sarah mused, watching recordings of the final preparations. To experience evolution and growth again, to remember what it meant to struggle and achieve. "Yes," Araya confirmed, "but they left us behind. The ships, the guardians, the knowledge. Not to give you back power before you were ready, but to ensure you would survive to make your own choices." The awakening of the Hyperion had triggered more than just the hidden fleet. All across Earth, ancient facilities began to reveal themselves. Research centers, defense installations, libraries containing knowledge that had been waiting patiently for humanity to remember. Dr. Rodriguez led teams studying the technology, carefully parsing through advancements that could help without overwhelming Earth's current development. "It's all designed to be integrated gradually," he reported. "Clean energy, medical breakthroughs, environmental restoration, but nothing that would let us skip the important steps of figuring things out ourselves." The Craven's retreat had sent shockwaves through the galaxy. Other species began appearing at the edge of the solar system, not to threaten, but to witness. The children of the Federation had awakened, and the galaxy held its breath to see what they would become. Sarah found herself spending more time on the Hyperion's observation deck, watching Earth rotate below. "Araya," she asked one day, "why didn't the Federation just eliminate threats like the Craven? Why protect and guide instead of simply enforcing peace through superior power?" The AI's response was thoughtful. Because the Federation's greatest strength wasn't its technology or its weapons. It was understanding. Your ancestors learned that true peace can't be enforced. It has to be grown, nurtured, chosen. Every species must find its own path, make its own mistakes, learn its own lessons. And now we have to make the same choice, Sarah realized. We've remembered who we were, but we have to decide who we're going to be. The challenges became clear as more of the galaxy's current state was revealed. In the Federation's absence, dozens of species had tried to fill the void. Some, like the Craven, chose conquest. Others formed alliances for mutual protection. The galaxy had become a more dangerous, chaotic place. "We're receiving more transmissions," Dr. Tanaka reported one morning. "Not just observations now. Some of these species, they're asking for help. They remember the Federation too, through their own legends and histories. They're hoping we'll take up our old role." The world's governments debated what to do with this newfound legacy. The technology alone could solve many of Earth's problems, but with it came responsibility. The Federation's records showed clearly what happened to civilizations that gained power before they were ready for its burden. Perhaps that's the real test, Sarah suggested during a global conference. Not whether we can reclaim our place among the stars, but whether we can do it wisely this time. Learn from both our past achievements and our past mistakes. Araya revealed that the Hyperion and its sister ships were more than just warships. They were seeds. Within their databases lay the blueprints for rebuilding not just humanity's technology, but its role as a guardian species. Each discovery was carefully designed to teach as much as it empowered. The Federation didn't want us to simply pick up where they left off, Dr. Rodriguez realized. They wanted us to understand why they made the choices they did, why they chose to sleep, why they protected instead of conquered, why they valued wisdom over pure power. As humanity grappled with these revelations, the Hyperion remained vigilant. The Craven wouldn't be the last to test Earth's defenses, but each encounter would teach valuable lessons about power, responsibility, and the true meaning of strength. The stars above Earth seemed different now, not distant lights, but familiar friends waiting to be remembered. Humanity stood at a crossroads, armed with the knowledge of their past, but free to choose their future. The Federation's legacy wasn't just in its technology or its ships. It was in the wisdom to know when to use power and when to let others grow on their own. Sarah often found herself returning to the Martian canyon where they'd first discovered the Hyperion. Standing at the edge, looking down at the massive excavation site, she could feel the weight of history and possibility. Humanity had been given a second chance not just to reach the stars, but to become their guardians once again. The question wasn't whether they would return to space. That was inevitable now. The real question was what kind of guardians they would choose to be. 1 year after the Hyperion's awakening, humanity stood on the brink of a new age. The great ship no longer patrolled Earth's orbit alone. 5 more of its sister ships had been awakened, each carrying its own ARIA unit, each revealing new pieces of humanity's legacy. But with remembrance came responsibility. Sarah stood before the newly formed Guardian Council, a diverse group of leaders from every nation on Earth. The chamber itself was a blend of old and new, built with recovered Federation technology, but shaped by modern human aesthetics. "We've confirmed the distress signal," she reported, displaying a holographic map of nearby star systems. "A young civilization, just achieving spaceflight, is under attack by raiders. Much like the Craven, these raiders prey on developing worlds. In the past year, we've discovered 17 such cases." The council chamber filled with murmurs. Everyone knew what this meant. Since awakening their heritage, humanity had focused on understanding their past and carefully integrating recovered technology. They hadn't yet intervened in galactic affairs. This would be different. "ARIA," Sarah called out. "Show them." The holographic display shifted, showing a peaceful world of azure oceans and emerald continents. Its fledgling space program had just launched their first interplanetary mission when the raiders arrived. The attacking ships were crude but powerful, designed for intimidation and plunder. "The Federation's records are clear about situations like this," Sarah continued. "We have the power to help. The question is, are we ready for what that means?" The debate that followed wasn't about whether they could intervene. The Hyperion alone could end the raid without breaking a sweat. The question was deeper. Was humanity prepared to step back onto the galactic stage, not just as a powerful species, but as guardians? Dr. Rodriguez, now Earth's leading expert on Federation technology, stood to speak. We've spent a year learning not just how to use these ships, but why they were built. The Federation didn't rule through fear or force. They protected, guided, taught. If we're going to reclaim our place among the stars, we need to understand that legacy. The Council's decision was unanimous. The Hyperion would respond to the distress call, but not alone. Each nation on Earth would send representatives, scientists, diplomats, teachers. This wouldn't be just a rescue mission. It would be humanity's first step toward becoming teachers and protectors once again. As the Hyperion prepared for departure, Sarah walked its now familiar corridors with a new sense of purpose. Her team had grown, incorporating experts from dozens of fields. They weren't just crew members. They were pioneers of humanity's new path. Era, she asked as they approached the bridge. Do you think we're ready for this? The A's response held a note of what almost sounded like pride. The Federation didn't create guardians, Sarah. They became guardians by choosing to help others, by understanding that true strength lies in how you use power, not just in having it. You're asking the right questions. That's the first step. The Hyperion's departure from Earth was witnessed by millions. As the massive ship broke orbit, its hull catching the sun's light, humanity watched not with fear or uncertainty, but with hope. They were no longer just reaching for the stars. They were returning to them with purpose. The journey to the endangered civilization took 3 days, time the crew spent preparing not just for combat, but for contact. They studied the young species' culture, language, dreams. Understanding was as important as firepower, perhaps more so. When they arrived, the scene was grim. The raiders had already begun their attack, their ships bombing civilian centers to create panic. But they hadn't expected interference, especially not from a Federation warship. Open a channel to the raiders, Sarah commanded, standing before the bridge's main viewport. Let's give them one chance to make the right choice. The raiders' response was predictable. Threats, boasts, dismissal. They hadn't heard about Earth's awakening, about the return of Federation ships. Their first warning was the Hyperion's suppression field sweeping across their fleet, shutting down weapons and engines with contemptuous ease. But it was what came next that truly demonstrated humanity's new path. As the raiders floated helpless in space, the Hyperion didn't destroy them. Instead, they were detained, their crews treated with firm but humane care. The young civilization below watched in awe as their saviors not only stopped the attack, but began helping with recovery efforts. Over the next weeks, the Hyperion's crew didn't just protect. They taught. They shared carefully chosen technologies to help rebuild, but more importantly, they shared stories, tales of humanity's own journey, their mistakes, their growth, their choice to become guardians rather than conquerors. As Sarah watched her crew work with the young civilization's people, she saw the Federation's wisdom in stepping back all those centuries ago. Power wasn't just about having the strongest ships or the most advanced technology. It was about understanding when to use that power, and more importantly, when not to. The raiders were eventually released, but not before being given a choice: continue their predatory ways and face humanity's guardianship, or begin their own journey toward becoming something better. To everyone's surprise, many chose the latter, asking to learn from those who had once been as lost as they were. As the Hyperion prepared to return to Earth, Sarah received a message from the young civilization's leaders. They didn't just offer thanks. They asked to learn. Not about weapons or power, but about responsibility, about growing while staying true to who you are. Standing on the Hyperion's observation deck, watching the alien world shine below, Sarah finally understood why their ancestors had chosen to sleep. Power wasn't the challenge, wisdom was, and now humanity had a chance to prove they had learned both. "Era," she said softly, "plot a course for home. But mark this sector for regular patrols. We have students to look after." The great ship turned gracefully, its engines igniting with controlled power. As they headed back to Earth, Sarah knew this was just the beginning. Humanity had awakened not just to power, but to purpose. The stars weren't just their heritage anymore. They were their responsibility. The guardians had returned, not to rule, but to protect, to teach, to guide. And this time, they would do it right.